Great news, everybody. Apple has finally stopped selling Apple Macs with 8 GB of RAM. It almost feels like something worth celebrating.
Celebration? I got you a hat. Here are some balloons. You just hold those.
These are huge. No one's going to be able to see my face.
That is not an issue. Time to celebrate. Go! Dave, celebrate more! More celebration!
So, we don't need to do the Apple math anymore, and we're not going to have to listen to Apple executives explaining why having less memory is somehow better. And that's progress. And we've got some new Macs to talk about. Well, one new model and 2 refresh models, but there's some good news in there. Perhaps the most important announcement for me though is that Apple also applied this memory increase to the MacBook Air. So both the current M3 models and the cheaper M2 model that they still sell now come with 16 gigs of memory as standard. And the price on those notebooks hasn't changed. So they're effectively £200 or dollars cheaper. And they were already great value ultra slim laptops, but now that's even more the case. The iMac has now been refreshed with the M4 chip, and that in itself is a decent step up from the M3. But if you've bought an M3 iMac in the last year, there's no need to rush out and upgrade. But if you're using the M1 iMac, it might be worth considering an upgrade, depending on what you're using the iMac for. Starting storage though is still a bit disappointing at 256 gigs, and the base model still gets a binned version of the chip. In this case, 2 fewer CPU cores and 2 fewer graphics cores. But the starting price does remain at $1,300. If it were me, I'd pony up at least 200 more to get the model with 10 CPU cores and 10 graphics cores, because this model also gets 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports instead of the 2 USB 4 ports on the base model. And you get gigabit Ethernet built into the power supply and Touch ID on your keyboard. This is actually an interesting development because it's the first time that one of the standard M chips gets true Thunderbolt 4 support. Nice. The base model iMac still supports 1 external display, but the rest of the range supports 2 external displays at up to 6K and 60Hz, or 1 external display at 8K 60. Another £200 or dollars gets you 512 gigs of storage, but you've also got options for 1TB and 2TB. Memory can go to 24 or 32 gigs, and this time there's also the option of a nano texture display, where you sacrifice a smidge of clarity for significantly reduced reflections. But you do have to be quite careful about cleaning those nano texture displays, so make sure you do your homework to check that it's what you want. The camera here is a 12 megapixel model supporting center stage and desk view. Same is true of the MacBook Pro, by the way. And the keyboard and mouse now come with USB-C instead of Lightning. The colors across the range have been revised, and of course that means they won't match any of the previous models. And that might matter to some people. But with the changes to Thunderbolt and display support, along with the fantastic performance of the M4 chip, this is a solid revision to what is still the best all-in-one desktop. Let's talk about the MacBook Pro, of which there are 3 chips on offer and 2 different sizes. So we'll start with the 14-inch model with the standard M4 chip. Of course, you can't have the 16-inch model with the standard M4 chip. It has to be 14-inch. There are no binned options though. All of the chips have the 10 CPU cores and 10 GPU cores. And I'm pleased to see that the base storage is 512 gigabytes. There's also options for 1TB or 2TB. Memory, of course, is 16 gigabytes. Celebrate. Or you can choose 24 or 32. And there's also that nano texture display option if you spend a lot of time working outdoors, on the beach or something, which sounds pretty good, but let's not give Erin any ideas. Now, unlike the M3 version, we get 3 ports, and like the iMac, these are full Thunderbolt 4 spec. The M3 model was missing the port on the right-hand side of the laptop, but now you get that even with these entry models, and that's great because it means you can plug in to charge on either side of the laptop. And because it's Thunderbolt 4, that means 2 external displays can be connected. All of the models are available in either space black or silver. Now, whereas previously the entry models didn't feel particularly deserving of the Pro label, this M4 revision does, and it still starts at £1,600 or dollars. A great computer at that price point, and it will be a great all-round computer for coders, creatives, and enthusiasts. What if you want a little bit more horsepower? Perhaps you need to do some more complex video editing. say multiple streams of 8K, or maybe you need some more CPU horsepower for complex compile jobs. Well, in that case, you might take a look at the models with M4 Pro. The 14-inch M4 Pro model starts at $2,000, and that gives you a binned version of the M4 Pro chip with 12 CPU cores and 16 graphics cores. There's 24 gigs of unified memory and 512 of storage. But for $400 more, you can have the M4 Pro with 14 CPU cores and 20 graphics cores. That's twice as many graphics cores as the standard M4. With this configuration, starting memory is still 24 gigs, but storage increases to 1 terabyte. And those additional CPU cores over the standard M4 are all performance cores. So the M4 Pro gets 4 efficiency cores and either 8 or 10 performance cores. I know from my tests with the new iPad Pro that the standard M4 chip is already benchmarking quite close to M1 Max on multi-threaded performance, so these Pro chips are going to be comfortably ahead. It's more than enough performance for heavyweight professional workflows. And we get Thunderbolt 5. That's 80 gigabits per second of bidirectional bandwidth, and it can even boost to 120 gigabits for display output. Now, it may take a while for Thunderbolt 5 peripherals to become widely available and affordable, but it's a great thing to have. There are no binned chips on the 16-inch models, which start at $2,500. Memory is 24 or 48 gigs, and there are storage options up to 4 terabytes. Now, if that level of performance isn't enough, or you need more graphics power for video post-production, rendering or gaming, or if you need more memory for AI development like running LLMs and virtual models on device, then you need M4 Max. This is a mind-blowing level of performance in a laptop computer, and it starts at $3,200 for a 14-inch model or $3,500 for a 16-inch model, both with a binned version of that M4 Max chip. And that features the same 14-core CPU from the M4 Pro, but you get 32 graphics cores, and that is a significant step up. Memory is 36 gigs, and there's 1 terabyte of storage included at this level. It'll cost you $500 more to go to the non-binned version of the chip, but that's also including an increase to 48 gigs of memory, hence the steep upgrade price. But the full-fat M4 Max looks mighty. You get another 2 CPU performance cores to take you up to 16 in total. And I'm looking forward to seeing some performance tests with that. Graphics cores, they jump up to 40, and that's going to be a seriously powerful GPU in a laptop. There are options for 64 and 128 gigs of memory, and storage can be configured all the way up to 8 terabytes. At a price, of course. Spec up the 16-inch version to maximum memory and storage, and you'll be parting with over $7,000. So let's bring the prices back down to less heady proportions, and we'll look at the new Mac Mini. It's considerably smaller than the outgoing model, with a footprint of just 5 inches square. It looks a lot like a Mac Studio that got shrunk in the wash. But we do now have ports on the front. 2 USB-C 10 gigabit ports and a 3.5mm headphone jack. On the rear, we've lost the USB Type-A ports, but we've got 3 Thunderbolt ports. If you choose the M4 model, these are Thunderbolt 4, but go to M4 Pro and there'll be Thunderbolt 5. I'm really pleased to see that we haven't lost the Ethernet or the HDMI ports. It's great news. And that Ethernet port can be configured on either model up to 10 gigabits. I'm particularly pleased to see, though, that they've managed to keep the power supply internal, despite the tiny dimensions of this computer. I think it's going to be really popular. It starts at £600 or dollars for the M4 model. And there are no binned chips here. You get the full-fat 10-core CPU and 10 graphics cores, with, of course, 16 gigs of memory. Again, I find myself slightly disappointed to see that the starting storage is still just 256 gigs. And I imagine most buyers will want to cough up another 200 to push that up to 512. Memory can be configured to 24 or 32 gigabytes, and there are storage options up to 2 terabytes. But if you want to make your Mini more mighty, you can splash out for the M4 Pro model. That starts at $1,400 with the bin chip, or $1,600 if you want the full-fat M4 Pro. And these models can also be configured with 48 or 64 gigs of memory and storage up to 8 terabytes. Spec it to the max though, and you'll be waving goodbye to 4,700 of your precious pounds or dollars. And that's quite a lot for such a tiny computer. But with Thunderbolt 5 on board, is there any need to pay the Apple tax on storage? External drives will be just as fast and considerably cheaper. In fact, I'd go external with Thunderbolt 4 machines too. And I actually made a video about that, so why not watch it next? And please, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Are any of these changes starting to make your wallet sweat? Are you going to be upgrading your Mac or maybe buying your first Mac? Or do you just need to vent your spleen about Apple's pricing? Well, that's okay too. I hope you enjoyed this quick rundown of the important changes, and I'll see you again soon for some more geekery.
Go. Dave, come on, more celebration! More celebration!
that this will start again.
But you didn't even do it.
Okay, I got a
You got to really go for it.
flipping egg.
Have an
Right,
asthma attack
okay.
when you do it, kind of thing.
All right, one more time then.
Crying out loud, you said 10 to 15 minutes of my time.
Pete,
It's 5 minutes.
Pete, have you worked with me in video before?
Yes.
So then you knew I was lying. Right. Great news. Just can't get a staff, can you? I feel like that was okay. Oh. Fire hazard! Fire hazard!